Alright everyone, welcome to another Trains Build episode. So you might notice we're not on the Port Tillamook and Northern, we're on a new route. And basically the backstory behind this, I was working on the Port Tillamook and Northern, and then I'm looking through the N3V Games newsletter, and what do you know, they already rebuilt the route. So I look at that and I'm like, ah, crud, that's not going to come out nearly as well as they can do it over at Auroran, especially now that they have especially now that they have approach medium over their building routes. So it's like, okay, what do I do with that? I have no idea, and yet I still need something for you guys to watch because you like the series and I can't exactly drop content on you. So what I came up with was we're going to be rebuilding another route from Trains 2006, another one of my favorites. And this, well, okay, actually not my favorite per se, but it's probably one of the most well-known routes on there and probably one of the most used routes for videos and stuff and everything for putting on YouTube. And that's the City and Country USA. So, not only am I rebuilding it, native in Tane SP2 with joint rail signals, joint rail track, and then a Shoto Road standard, and then, what's grade crossing? TRC crossing. But not only am I doing that, but I decided, well, let's go ahead and make it a model railroads, because that's, okay, rabbit trail for a minute here, people, but actually two rabbit trails. Rabbit trail number one, start at the station and we work out towards the yard, get the station, then we do the flyover, and then we get the yard in. So that's the general layout. But the other rabbit trail, now that you know how the video is going to go, trains, model railroads. There's a word pun right there. No, I love this concept, guys, because as approach medium said, and Bill M echoed him on when he did the live stream with Bill M on, you can basically build the model railroad of your dreams, and yes, it is a whole lot cheaper than the models, which I know because I have a model railroad in the basement, which if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, hint hint, subscribe. If you've been watching it, then you've seen the layout updates and you know all about that. But no, I just love the model railroads concept because it's unlimited space and the results on the forums just look awesome. So I love the whole concept. So I decided to go with that for this one. And if you think about the City and Country USA route, with the exception of the bridge scene where the main line goes over that river, and the Y next to Union Station, the passenger terminal, except for that one spot, the route lends itself very well. It lends itself just perfectly to model railroads. So that's basically the idea. It's going to stay like the original, except the only change I made is and you'll see this here when I do the tunnel, but the area in front of the station on the Trains 04, it was just blank tile, and I'm like, okay, if that's a model railroad, you know, you have somebody switching the passenger terminal, that's going to be a 6-7 foot deep seam, and you know, 2 foot average reach, maximum reach is 3 feet, and that's stretching. Really, it's 2 feet as far as reach in depth on an actual model railroad. So it's like, okay, that ain't going to work, you know, and then you'd have to put in magnetic uncouplers and LEDs, and it's easier if you can get up and switch it. And I'm like, okay, well, you could put a swing bridge, but, and this, at this point in the video, or, well, okay, I'm recording this separate from watching the video, so, but when I do the flyover, I pause for a long time because I was trying to figure this out. And it's like, okay, if this was real, you'd put a swing gate, but then you're right next to a main line, and if you have a lot of trains, every time you cut the gate, you have to put in things so the trains don't run off the edge, so it cuts the power. And then you've got wasted space opposite the aisle from the passenger terminal. And then how you fit staging into all this, you know, So what I came up with, and you'll see this in the time lapse at some point, is I decided to go with a tunnel under Union Station. Instead of having the main line come in a Y, it takes a left parallel to Union Station and then goes under Union Station. And by this point, if you'll remember, the whole route was a giant oval. So you come out of Union Station, the freight yard, you'll go through a mainline peninsula, and then there'll be another one because you have that spur branching off to the steel mill complex. Come around the room, and all that distance you go down 3 feet. So you're under it, and you'll see this at the beginning of the time lapse. I have a little area next to the staircase, which is going to be a workshop / staging room, and that's where I have my main line going into staging. But I didn't want to get rid of the junction because that's just awesome to have a junction right next to a passenger station. So my first thought was, okay, well, I'm not doing a Y, I'll just bring the main lines in and have, a fancy interlocking and everything. Well, then and to echo something approached me and just mentioned in like his latest build, the city of Junietta, I can't pronounce it. If you're watching this approach, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said in there, do it bite-sized pieces at a time. Don't get so big you end up not making any progress. And another thing I've learned over the years of doing this, trains are great if you want to replicate a prototype interlocking. But unless you have Fremo iPortal from what they had back in '06, or you have multiplayer, it takes you forever to run anything bigger than a switching setup. And signals are great in trains, but they only do so good because you still have to be the CTC. You have to do driver commands and everything. So yeah, it looks awesome, but when it comes to running it, it's almost complicated enough you can hardly do it. So it's like, okay. So what I finally came up with, and I wanted this anyways because it gives me a big city look, was a flyover. And I've seen pictures of these over the years. The Pennsy had them. I'm sure there are 4 or 5 other railroads that have them, but the Pennsy used it a lot on the Northeast Corridor and outside of, I think I saw a picture once of a Y on top of a quadruple track main line that was set up as a flyover. So I decided to do a flyover, and I thought, okay, I'll have one of the tracks go over and one of them won't. And then for east, inbound and outbound, you have one connection onto the main. You don't have to do a bunch of crossovers and stuff. So that's what I ended up doing with that. The Union Station itself, I give it 3 leads, 2 for in and outbound. The third was originally going to be like for commuters. It still is, but then I also realized the first time I did this, I laid it out and then I tested the room length, and it was like 300 foot. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a model railroad, not a full-size route. It's not a 1/1 scale route. It's supposed to be an HO layout. So I'm like, okay, we got to redo this. So that shrunk it up, and then I decided, you know what? Why don't I just combine this? Make it the switch lead for the freight yard / switch lead for Union Passenger Station. And then you don't even have to bother with any of the main line. You can switch that whole area, and when I get into sessions, you can switch, you could have it switch the freight house and the REA depot and the mail tracks and all that stuff, and just have commuter and passenger trains running AI in and out of the terminal. And it's that much easier because you aren't getting out on the main. So that was the thought behind that. You'll see also the main line in front of the yard, it bumps out to a scale 2 feet, which maximum reach in depth. And at first I was kind of struggling how to do yard because one side, and you'll see this towards the end of the time lapse, had to be basically a pinwheel. And I'll get into how I did that in a little bit because there's a little bit of a technique in there. So I was struggling with that, and I finally said, hey, wait a minute, let's just put this thing on an angle. So you got the main line in an S-curve, and you got the yard on a slope. And in the back, I'm going to put some industries, and then probably building flats, apartments, couple houses. So what I did was put it on an angle, and that pretty much solved it. And then I'll have the engine tracks, and you actually see me start the ladder for that in this too. But they'll go right there, so they'll be pretty much right next to the flyover, and then they'll have city scenes and everything. Another thing I want to point out, and I'll let you get to the video because I've been talking for almost the whole thing, but first thing, the pinwheel ladder, what I did was I used these curve radi guides off of the DLS, and these are awesome because they're HO scale 18 to 42 radius. So you can set it up, and that came in so handy over here. This is awesome. But I did the outer radius, and at that point I had to do a bunch of little short track segments for the first couple, and then it went into a normal ladder. But as you'll see, the result is a pretty good looking pinwheel ladder setup. And then you'll also see a junction at this end of the freight yard, and eventually on the other side of the backdrop, the blue sky backdrop you see me putting in about now, I think it is, will be a branch, because on the actual route the main line from Union Station went out, one was freight, and then there was a big hill which they were using as a seam divider essentially, and there were a bunch of commuter stations, and they joined back up with the main, and there was also an oil refinery. But that was a map, and it didn't translate well to real life because you would have had basically a peninsula with a hole in the middle, and then you would have had one commuter line or the freight yard buried. So I decided, okay, well, we'll just have the commuter trains go past the freight yard and then on to a branch, because a suburban branch. So it'll be commuter. I'll stick a couple industries on it, have a reason for a little rinky-dink local, something like that. And also, it'll be in our entrance into staging, because if this was a model, then at the end of it, you could have it go into, say, abandoned track, like there's a station stop that hasn't been used in 2 or 3 years, but they haven't abandoned the right-of-way because they might bring it back, or they're using it for car storage or something. But you could just stick that off the backdrop and then run that into your workshop and hook it up to your programming track and your computer and your DCC programmer and JMRI and all that stuff. Which I also need to add dispatcher's room on this, but I'll get to that. So that's what's going on with that. That'll be in our episode, obviously. And then the main line will go over a big river like it did on our side of the freight yard in the 04 route. And then we'll start getting into desert, a mainline peninsula with some hilly stuff, so kind of the area, city, river, hills. And then there'll be a separate peninsula for the steel plant. We'll have a town, some more scenery, maybe an air whistle stop, and then by that point it'll be wrapped around the basement. I'll have to figure out how to do the coal mine and oil branch. That'll probably be in our peninsula, but mainline at that point will come back in to staging. So that's what's going on. As always, let me think. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I'm sorry there hasn't been a trains build series in forever. It's just schoolwork has been hectic, and then also figuring out what I'm going to do for content, because they already built the rebuild I was working on. So I decided to go with this, and then just some other stuff, and whatever spare time I have, I've been downstairs working on the layout, which hasn't been that much to begin with. So this is just one of those quirky things for me. I find more satisfaction in I'm working with my hands, physically working on the models, than on the simulator. And I'm in the middle of a giant project on the layout right now anyways. So, but wow, I've been talking for 15 minutes almost. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. If I upload this before Saturday the 31st, there is a announcement. Just a reminder, people, I'm having a live stream Saturday 31st at Jack's Obsession. And then I'm having another live stream on the 7th with Obsession at Jack's. And then another live stream from Mr. Van Cleves of Decoder Installs. So, be looking forward to that. Anyways, as always, comment, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to check out the novel on fanfiction.net, as well as Pinterest. For basically, I collect freight car pictures for weathering reference, as well as railroad pictures in general. And also, don't forget to check out my Google Plus for railroad photography and train pictures in general. So, as always, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I will see you on the next video, and I will see you guys on the live stream. Hope you guys turn out. Really want to meet some of you. So, yeah, everybody take care. God bless, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching Goose and the Caboose Productions.